I'm Elizabeth. How are you? Today we're going to discuss cryptids. What is a cryptid? A cryptid is a creature with surrounding stories, and some people believe exist or say they've seen, but that has never been proven to exist. Now, I'm not the best at computers, so I don't have that many pictures. Okay, I do have paper pictures, some, not many. I've written all, but we'll get to this. But anyway, so those cryptids, they shouldn't be considered cryptids. These include aliens, angels, and demons. So-called bizarre humans, such as zombies, and generally insignificant creatures that aren't big, weird, or dangerous, and controversial in a scientific sense. Cryptid hunters are called cryptozoologists. Cryptid hunters or cryptozoologists are people who find animals thought to be extinct to never exist or to be mythological. My teleprompter is really slow, and I have to have one because we are going to cover a lot of material. There are categories of cryptids, types of cryptids. There are numerous types of cryptids, including hairy humanoids, giant bats, dinosaurs, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, pterosaurs, dragons, dragonoids, carnivores, giants, avians, and more. The hairy humanoids category consists of bipedal human-like cryptids that are covered in hair, of course. A prominent example is Bigfoot, Sasquatch, what's it called? The abominable snowman. Cryptids, not monsters. They're not monsters. Cryptids are animals or creatures that are mentioned in folklore or other accounts, but they are not considered to be monsters. Their actual existence is questionable. Cryptozoology is the study of cryptids, these creatures, and is considered to be a pseudoscience. I apologize for the background noise. I know this is an ASMR, but trying to keep it as quiet as possible. Anyway, it's pseudoscience. It does not follow the normal scientific method. What is considered a cryptid? Plural, cryptids. And animals such as Sasquatch or the Loch Ness Monster, which, once again, not actually a monster. It has been claimed to exist, but never proven to exist. Contrary to popular belief, cryptids don't have to be supernatural, mythical, or even all that strange. Though many popular cryptids creatures acquire these characteristics as they just grow. That's my dog in the background. He's playing. He thinks he's a kitty. He might be a cryptid himself. Who invented the word cryptid? Cryptozoologist J.E. Wall. following cryptozoology. The term cryptid was coined in 1983, actually. It's a very new term. J.E. Wall, in the summer issue of the International Society of Cryptozoology newsletter, according to Wall, it was suggested that new terms be coined to replace sensational and often misleading terms like monster, because like I said before, they are not monsters. These types of terms were considered to be unique. The uniqueness of each known cryptid makes it hard for cryptozoologists to categorize these beings. For example, true creatures that appear similar, say Bigfoot and the Yeti, could have distinctly different backstories or behaviors. Because of this conundrum, cryptids are generally classified into three types. Terrestrial, aquatic, and aerial. Did you know that some real species we know about today were once considered cryptids? The Komodo dragon. Until 1910, stories of a giant lizard on the island of Komodo and in Indonesia were laughed at by any respectable scientist. However, when Lieutenant Steen van Hansbroek caught and killed one, things changed. Explorer W. Douglas Varden wasn't happy with just a dead specimen and decided to travel to the island to capture a live one. He returned to New York City with a few dead specimens, and not one but two live Komodo dragons. Dragons were put on display at the Bronx Zoo and inspired Marion C. Cooper to write the 1933 classic King Kong. It's quite interesting, don't you think? Platypus. If you weren't familiar with a platypus and looked at a picture of one, it would be easy to believe it was a Photoshop of a duck, an otter, and a beaver all put together. Naturalists, scientists, and most Europeans in the 18th century didn't believe such a creature could exist. The second governor of New South Wales, Captain John Hunter, sent a pelt and a sketch of a platypus to scientists for the European community in 1798, shortly after one was caught. Zoologist anatomist, ethologist, and physician Robert Knox was convinced it was a hoax, and the pelt was made by an Asian taxidermist. Botanist and zoologist George Shaw, who at the time believed the platypus could be real, but he had no doubt to take scissors to the pelt to find stitches several years later after many expeditions. The platypus proved to be real. Okapi, also known as the forest giraffe, the okapi is a blend of a zebra, donkey, deer, and antelope. Yet its closest genetic link is giraffes. Europeans in the 18th and 19th centuries called this animal the African unicorn. Of course, Africans knew that okapi existed since these animals inhabit the Uturi forest in Central Africa, because okapies are rarely seen and are extremely hard to find. They were classified as a cryptid for many years. In 1901, Sir Harry Johnson found an okapi skeleton and skin and sent it to the British Museum, where it was classified as a new species. Gorilla. I bet you didn't expect to see gorillas on this list. In fact, most European explorers thought that gorillas were monster-like. The first attributed sighting of a gorilla by non-African was made in the 5th century BC by Greek explorer Hanno. Most scientists today believe Hanno was describing either chimpanzees or baboons from his account. However, his interpreters called the creatures that he saw gorilla. Interesting, right? Another explorer, Andrew Patel, recounted seeing human-like monsters visit his campfire every morning after he left for the day. Of course, he had to mention they didn't know how to put more than wood on the fire to keep it going. Yet gorillas remained cryptids until 1847, when Thomas Savage found gorilla bones in Liberia. He, alongside Harvard anatomist Jeffrey Wyman, wrote a formal description of the new species, calling it gorilla. A decade later, anthropologist Paul Duchola hunted live gorillas in order to obtain specimens to be analyzed. One gorilla species, the mountain gorilla, Gorilla Beringe, stayed a cryptid until 1902, when German Captain Robert von Beringe first identified one. Giant squid. Many people still consider the giant squid to be a cryptid. Similar to most cryptids, which tend to live in habitats that are difficult for humans to find, giant squid live in the deep ocean. The first images of a giant squid were taken in 2004 by researchers in Japan, and in 2006, scientists from Japan's National Science Museum caught a live 24-foot female giant squid. Every few months, there's another news report of a dead giant squid washing ashore. Even though some people consider the giant squid to be a hoax, the scientific evidence says otherwise. Bondi Jizu is one of the ancestral spirits of the Maori people in western Papua New Guinea. Its ties to western Papua New Guinea mythology made the Bondi Jizu a cryptid for decades. It wasn't until the 1980s that Kim Flannery, an Australian scientist, took the first picture of the Bondi Jizu. Mr. Flannery identified the animal as a tree-dwelling marsupial. It looked like a tiny man. It has a black and white fur and even walks around on two legs. Unfortunately, it is on the endangered species list. Kangaroo. It's hard to believe that kangaroos were once cryptids. The first description of a kangaroo was made by Amerigo Vespucci in 1499 when he was traveling along the southern coast of Australia. He described it as a monstrous beast with the head of a fox, the hands of a man, the tail of a monkey, and the bag that is used to carry its young. In 1629, Francisco Pizarro captured a kangaroo, but it died on his voyage. It wasn't until Sir Joseph Banks rediscovered the kangaroo on Captain Cook's voyage in 1770 that the kangaroo changed from an enjoyable myth to an actual species. Loch Ness Monster spotted again. Declared September 25, 2021. Edition of the New York Post. Drone footage appearing show a huge, long-necked animal beneath Loch Ness. A 22 square mile, 56 square kilometer lake in northern Scotland had been recently uploaded to the internet as reported by the Post. Alas, the video turned out to be a hoax. Once again, someone had clearly edited the footage, and its monster bears a striking resemblance to one mass-produced plesiosaur toy. Plesiosaurs, for the record, were seagoing reptiles that coexisted with dinosaurs between about 201 and 66 million years ago. Many species had long necks, small heads, and needle-shaped teeth. The first modern sighting of the Loch Ness monster dates back to August 1933. Many subsequent accounts describe an animal that sounds a bit plesiosaur-esque. Perhaps what people are really seeing is some type of misidentified native fish. Or maybe Scotland's geology is playing tricks on us. Who knows? Loch Ness is bordered by a natural fault line that sometimes produces tremors. Those send bubbles and waves dancing across the water surface. Viewed from a distance, such disturbances might possibly be mistaken for the thrashings of a giant lake beast. I could see it, but maybe not. Anyway, a shaggy biped with ties to Central Asian folklore, the Yeti is said to dwell in the Himalayan mountains and Tibetan plateau. Cryptozoologists usually interpret it as some kind of primate, possibly akin to the orangutan. Stories about weird footprints in the snow beds around Mount Everest make Yetis world famous during the early 20th century. Eventually, the U.S. government took notice on November 30th, 1959. The American Embassy in Nepal released a document outlining the official regulations for Yeti hunters in the area. The riverside city of Point Pleasant, West Virginia has a museum, a statue, and a recurring festival, all dedicated to the one and only Mothman. Let me see if I have any pictures. So, this was my picture of the Yeti that we passed up. And this was my picture I had of the Loch Ness. And then I had this picture, and it's not very good, of the Mothman. He kind of looks like a fairy. He's just flying. And actually I only have two other pictures that are kind of crap too, but we'll get to those. Okay. So, believers will tell you the creature's got glowing red eyes. Other attributes include massive wings and a tall, uniquely vaguely humanoid stature. In 1966, the Point Pleasant Register started reporting on Mothman sightings when the nearby Silver Bridge over the Ohio River collapsed December 15, 1967, killing 46 people. There were rumors that Mothman was connected to the disaster. Baby's Secret of the Lost Legend is a 1985 Disney movie about the 20th century dinosaur who lived off the grid in the Congo River Basin. The picture drew inspiration from Africa's fabled Moki Mimbib. I'm probably butchering that word. In case you hadn't heard, this thing is supposed to be a huge water monster resembling the herbivorous, long-necked, and very much extinct dinosaur Brontosaurus, aka Apatosaurus. During the early 20th century, animal merchant Carl Hagenbach popularized the belief that non-avian dinosaurs were still at large in Africa. Back in his day, a lot of museum displays portrayed Brontosaurus and its kin as waterbound lake creatures. Yet, there is no evidence to support this. Indeed, thanks to bone and trackway evidence, it's now clear that the magnificent animals were fully terrestrial landlubbers. The year was 1995, and there had been some horrific reports about a mysterious beast slaughtering domestic animals left and right. It was said the creature drained the blood of its victims, leaving fatal injuries behind. Eventually, it became known as El Chupacabra, which means the goat sucker in Spanish. Over in Mexico and in southwestern United States, coyotes and raccoons suffering from mange, which can render them all but hairless, are occasionally misidentified as chupacabras. On his expeditions to Mongolia during the 1920s, American explorer Roy Chapman Andrews heard stories about a bizarre animal called Allegoria horhai. Since then, it's picked up a wicked nickname, the Mongolian deathworm. As recounted by Scientific American, he told these tales in a 1922 Asia magazine article, writing that the organism is shaped like a sausage about 2 feet long, has no head nor legs, and is so poisonous that merely to touch it means instant death. It lives in the most desolate parts of the Gobi Desert, where we were going. That sounds horrendous. Sasquatches need no introduction. A 2020 poll found that 11% of U.S. adults believe the legendary ape-like creature really does exist. The term Bigfoot originated in 1958 newspaper column, written by Andrew Gonzalez of the Humboldt Times. The piece describes mysterious footprints that were found at a construction site in Northern California. Fast forward to 2003. That year, Raymond Wallace, a logger who worked on the site, passed away at age 84. Wallace's surviving children told the press their late father had faked those monster prints in '58. His tools, a choice feet-shaped wooden carvings. The jackalope is supposedly a cross between a jackrabbit and an antelope. The antlered critter is rumored to be quite the singer and able to mimic human sounds. Originating from the American West, taxidermy pranks gave rise to this mythical creature seeing dead jackalopes mounted alongside actual taxidermied animals, prompted tales of live jackalopes. The Wampus Cat is a legendary creature steeped in Appalachian folklore, rooted in Cherokee mythology. Tell tales of a woman who, after eavesdropping on a tribal ceremony, was cursed to transform into a half-human, half-feline beast. Descriptions vary, but it's often portrayed with a human face, feline body, and a haunting cry. There have been reported sightings in the Smoky Mountain region particularly. in Tennessee. Described as a long-necked aquatic creature resembling a plesiosaur, Champy is essentially the northeast answer to Loch Ness Monster. The elusive creature allegedly inhabits Lake Champlain, hence the name Champy, which borders Vermont and New York. The first sighting was in 1609 when French photographer Samuel de Champlain allegedly spotted something strange in the lake's shadows. Eyewitness reports from one local resident after the next surge in the 20th century, the most famous of them being tied to the 1977 Mansi photograph. While the photo showed no signs of tampering, it's still not considered concrete proof of the lake monster's existence. Skeptics attribute repeated sightings to logs or fish, but local communities embrace the Champy legend through festivals and tourism. Originating from Louisiana's Honey Island swamp, we know really creative naming on this one. The creature's myth involves a circus train from in the 1960s, supposedly releasing chimpanzees into the wild. Given how similar the Honey Island swamp monster's appearance reportedly is to Bigfoot's, it seems particularly unlikely such a creature descended from chimps. Described as ape-like, with gray hair, yellow or red eyes, and a foul odor, the monster's been linked to lore of native tribes such as the Choctaw and Puma. Two air traffic controllers reported the first documented sighting in the 1960s, and though there have been numerous others, skeptics dismissed each one as a random bear attack, or just another hoax. With a main-lined face fronting a jaguar-like body, the Morosi, also known as the spotted lion, was reported several times in the 1930s in Kenya's mountains, but hasn't been mentioned much since. The Natural History Museum in Great Britain is said to be in possession of the spotted skin of a Morosi, but many experts think the specimen represents a jaguar that bred with common spotless plains lions. Kamchatka giant bear. Swedish zoologist Dan Bergman, working in Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula in the 1920s, discovered a new paw print that measured a full square foot, suggesting a bear of remarkable size. Similar sightings tell of a person almost twice the size of the tropical North American grizzly bear, measuring 6 feet of the shoulder. Some Russian biologists believe that a small group of Kamchatka giant bears that survived the most recent ice age. Bigfoot's smelly southern cousin has been reported a number of times in Florida's swamps, most convincingly in 2000, by a couple who took an excellent snapshot of what looked to be a 6 foot 6 inch 2 meter orangutan. The picture didn't capture its scent, of course, but the couple attested to its trustworthy. Lizard man. The scaly green hominid, the resident mysterious beast of a scope or swamp in South Carolina, has long been at the center of local lore. While many consider the creature a hoax, others swear they've encountered it face to face. Lizard Man has had several brushes with fame. A local radio station once offered $1 million for a live capture, and in 1988, a South Carolina Republican lender labeled Lizard Man a staunch Democrat. Jersey Devil, and I have a crappy picture of it. According to most reports, Jersey Devil cryptozoological curiosity has wings, a horse face, a pig's hooves, and a kangaroo's body. The legend of the Jersey Devil was born in the 1700s based on a tale of a cursed baby turned demon that flew off into the night and boomed in the early 1900s with people singing it all over the state. To this day, people report Jersey Devil sightings, mostly in the spooky pine barrens of southern New Jersey, where some locals think the creature is truly a supernatural beast. Others say it's probably a misidentified sandhill crane. That's my last picture, unfortunately. The Kraken is a legendary monstrous creature in the deep ocean waters near Scandinavian regions. It's described as an enormous octopus-like animal that's big enough to attack ships and frighten sailors. This one might have basis in reality, thanks to the existence of giant squid, a form of cryptid, that can grow up to 50 feet, 15 meters long. Tahoe Tessie. Deep in Lake Tahoe, on the California-Nevada border, lies a storied sea creature that's the Sierra Nevada cousin of the Loch Ness Monster. It's alleged that after a submarine expedition, undersea explorer Jacques Cousteau said, "The world isn't ready for what's down there." He could have course, have been referring to anything odd. Popular descriptions portray Tessie as either a freshwater relative of a hoe or a 20-foot, 6-meter sea serpent with a humped back. Mongolian monster. In eastern Arizona, there is a long rocky ridge called the Mongolian Rim that runs deep through a thick forest. That's the reported home of a Mongolian monster, which is described as a tall, two-legged monster with thick hair and a rancid stench. Although amateur hunters have produced various bits of so-called evidence over the past century, there's no reason to think this famous cryptid really exists. Champy. Once again, I'm sorry. I don't know why that's in there again. So, we're just going to skip past that one. And skip past it. We'll skip past it. Skip past it. And it's still talking about it. Colossal Claude is a sea serpent cryptid reported to inhabit the Columbia River in Oregon. Descriptions of Claude depict a large serpentine creature with a round body, long neck, and horse-like head. Sightings peaked in the mid-20th century, adding an air of mystery to the Columbia River. Dark Watchers. The Dark Watchers are mysterious figures reported along the Santa Lucia Mountains in California. They're described as tall, shadow, humanoid figures that stand motionless, often at great heights, watching those who encounter them while they're not known to interact or harm individuals. Their presence has been unsettling to many. Lake Worth Monster, also known as the Goat Man, is a cryptid reported in Lake Worth, Texas. It's described as a part man, part goat creature. Sightings peaked in the summer in 1969, and Florida reports described as the creature terrorizing the local populace. The Lake Worth monster continues to be a popular piece of local lore. Michigan Dogman. First reported in the late 19th century, is a cryptid reported to roam the northwestern great quadrant of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. This creature is described as a 7-foot-tall, blue-eyed or amber-eyed bipedal canine-like animal with torso of a man and a fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. Despite the lack of solid evidence, The dogman's legend continues to grow. Dover Demon. The Dover Demon is a small humanoid reported from Dover, Massachusetts. It was spotted during 3 separate sightings over the course of 25 hours in April 1977. Described as having a disproportionately large watermelon-shaped head, glowing orange eyes, and long, thin arms and legs, the Dover Demon remains one of the more baffling cryptids. Sinkhole Sam is a lake monster said to inhabit a sinkhole near Inman, Kansas. The creature is described as serpentine and is estimated to be about 15 feet long. Though sightings are rare, the local lore keeps the legend of Sinkhole Sam alive. Rougarou. The rougarou, also known as the loup-garou, stems from French Louisiana folklore. The cryptid is typically described as a creature with a human body and the head of a wolf or dog, similar to the werewolf legends of Europe. The rougarou is said to prowl the swamps around Acadia and Greater New Orleans in the Forest of Reasons. Cautionary tales against such behaviors, the Wendigo remains a horrifying figure in cryptid lore. Hodag. The Hodag is a cryptid from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. It's often depicted as a small mammalian creature with a frog's head, a grinning face, short legs set off by huge claws, the back of the dinosaur, and a long tail with spears at the end. While the Hodag was revealed as a hoax in the 19th century, it continued to be a popular local legend. The Nijmegen are a race of little people in Shoshone folklore said to inhabit the Pedro Mountains of Wyoming. Described as aggressive and magical, they were believed to use poison arrows to bring down intruders. While there is no scientific evidence for their existence, they remain a part of Shoshone mythology. Beast of Busco. Reported in Churubusco, Indiana, in the late 1940s, the Beast of Busco is a lake monster described as a giant snapping turtle. Despite extensive researches, the beast was never found. The story, however, continued to be celebrated by the locals with an annual turtle festival. Alkali Lake Monster, also known as Nebraska Nessie, is a cryptid reported to inhabit Alkali Lake in Nebraska. Descriptions paint as a large serpent-like creature. Like many lake monsters, prime evidence of the creature's existence remains elusive. Pukwudgie comes from Wampungo folklore and is said to inhabit areas around Massachusetts and Delaware. They are often described as human-like in appearance, but with their large noses, fingers, and ears. They're known for their mischievous behavior, which ranges from simple tricks to more harmful interactions. The Pope-licked Monster. It is a cryptid reported to inhabit the area around Pope Lick Creek and the railroad trestle bridge in Louisville, Kentucky. The creature is often described as a part man, part goat, and part sheep hybrid. This terrifying creature allegedly uses hypnosis or voice mimicry to lure trespassers onto the trestle to meet their doom in front of an oncoming train. While sightings are rare, the legend of the Pope-licked monster persists, adding a sense of dread to this otherwise picturesque location. Shunka Warakan, said to roam the areas around Montana, is a cryptid that is often described as a wolf-like creature, but with some features that resemble a hyena. The name comes from Native American folklore and roughly translates to carries off dogs, since it was reputed to sneak into camps and makes off with dogs while physical evidence is scant. The mystery of the Shinka hurricane continues to intrigue cryptozoologists and enthusiasts alike. Catty, or Catosaurus, short for Catiosaurus, is a sea serpent reported to inhabit the North Pacific Ocean and seen most frequently in the coastal waters of British Columbia. Descriptions of Catty often depict a long serpentine body equipped with flippers and a horse-like head. Sightings date back to indigenous oral histories and continue to this day, adding an air of mystery to the coastal waters of the North Pacific. So that was a lot, wasn't it? But we made it through, and hopefully you enjoyed learning a little bit here and there. I know I did. Until next time, my friends. That's all I have for you for now.